The Beagle originated in England. His heritage stretches back to the packs of hunting hounds kept by landed gentry to hunt deer and hare. Beagle-like scent hounds were known as far back as 1475 when the word beagle was first used to describe this type of hunting dog. It's a matter of debate whether the name comes from a Celtic word meaning small or a French word meaning open-mouthed or loud-mouthed. Given the beagle's propensity for barking when he catches an interesting scent on the wind, the latter theory seems most likely. Early beagles looked different depending on the type of ground over which they were expected to hunt. Houndsmen who lived in the gentle countryside of southern England produced slow and ponderous dogs. Beagles from the rougher terrain of Britain's border with Scotland were agile with lots of endurance. In the early 19th century, breeders worked to standardize the breed so they would have a more uniform appearance and temperament. But even today, they aren't that different from the beagles of 200 years ago. If one of these dogs were to come forward into the future, you would still recognize him as a beagle, and the same is true if a modern beagle were to be transported to the past. As his name indicates, the Malamute is native to Alaska. Early Eskimos who called themselves Inuit, meaning the people, were nomads who relied on dogs and sleds to transport themselves and their goods through their snowy, barren land. Besides pulling sleds or carrying burdens themselves, the dogs helped hunters seek out polar bears and other food sources. These dogs, which are the ancestors of Alaskan Malamutes, belong to the Spitz family of dogs, which includes Akitas, Chow Chows, Siberian Husky, and many more breeds. Based on studies of the canine genome, the Alaskan Malamute is one of the most ancient breeds in existence. The relationship between the dogs and the people was a close one, with the dogs being well fed and cared for, and babies suckling on dogs along with puppies, both instances that can be pointed to as a basis for the Malamute's love of people. Malamutes became important in 1896 during the Alaska Gold Rush, when miners paid sky-high prices for sleds and dog teams. A good dog alone could cost up to $500, and a sled and a small team could run as much as $1,500. While the Malamute was popular, this was a dangerous time for the breed because many people crossed the Malamutes with other breeds to either increase their speed or their size. Fortunately, the Spitz genes were dominant and the Malamutes quickly reverted. Beagles are happy, outgoing, and loving. They're often described as having a merry temperament, but they're also known for their mischievous nature. Beagles like to have their own way, and they can be naughty, determined, and stubborn in their efforts to get what they want, which is usually food. Start training early, be patient and consistent, and one day you will wake up to find you live with a great dog. But even so, there are a few beagle behaviors that you should expect to live with throughout his life. They are part and parcel of being a beagle, and nothing you do will change them. Everything a beagle does somehow leads back to his nose. His powerful sense of smell overcomes any good sense you might have tried to instill and tells the beagle to escape from the yard or break into the dog food bag in the pantry or see what's in the trash. Beagles will sing along to sirens, give tongue when they are hunting, and bark when strangers come to the door. But they aren't usually nuisance barkers unless they are bored or lonely. If you don't live out in a country where no one else is around to hear his drawn-out bark, keep your beagle occupied with toys, the company of other animals, or best of all, your presence, so he doesn't feel the need to serenade the neighborhood. Beagles like to do what they want to do, not necessarily what you want them to do. They're true masters when it comes to selective hearing. If a beagle isn't interested in the request you've made, as commands are futile with this breed, it will simply ignore you or wander off. That can be frustrating if you're not prepared for it. Successfully living with a beagle means making everything a game, one that will hold his attention. As for eating, well, beagles will try to eat anything. They're professional food thieves and they will eat anything that even looks like it might be food, including things that you wouldn't imagine would interest them. If nothing else, living with a beagle will teach you, your spouse, and your kids not to leave food of any kind within a beagle's nose range. I should note that your beagle's personality will also be affected by the kind of breeder who produces. Before we continue, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button as it would mean a lot. Thanks. Alaskan Malamutes are friendly and love people. This makes them a wonderful choice for the active family that's got a thief alarm and doesn't need a Malamute for his watchdog abilities. That's because he doesn't have any. He's moderately vocal and will howl along with sirens or talk to you with expressive woo-woos. For a Spitz breed though, he's pretty quiet and doesn't typically become a barker. This dog is smart and curious, and he wants nothing more than to share his discoveries with his human family members. Discoveries like exactly how the sofa was put together, or what the interior of your car would look like without all that carpeting. The good news is that destructiveness in a Malamute is preventable and treatable. The cure is exercise and lots of it, no matter what the weather is or if you have the flu. Lots and lots of strenuous exercise. Hiking, pulling sleds in winter and carts in summer, although don't let him become overheated. Competitive weight pulling and formal obedience are all good outlets for his brain and his brawn. The Malamute is smart, learns quickly and loves you, but he's also strong-willed and independent. Beagles from breeders who produce hunting dogs are more likely to be hard-changing and demanding of exercise. They're unsuited to lying around the house all day while everyone is at work or school. More laid-back Beagles typically come from a breeder who shows dogs in conformation. Beagles are generally healthy, but certain health problems can affect them if the breeders aren't careful about performing health checks. These include hip dysplasia, which is a genetic malformation of the hip socket, and certain types of heart conditions. Despite good breeding, Beagles may experience tears of anterior cruciate ligament, also known as ACL, which can require surgical repair, and intervertebral disc disease, a spinal problem that can make movement painful and may require surgical repair. Seizure disorders, hypothyroidism, diabetes, and cataracts may also be seen in this breed. Less common breeder-related conditions include deafness, heart disease, and dwarfism. Avoid breeders who try to sell you a puppy with dwarfism by marketing him as a rare pocket beagle. Dwarf beagles often have physical deformities such as a shortened neck, crooked legs, or a broader skull, and are often more prone to chronic arthritis. Not all of these conditions are detectable in a growing puppy, and it's impossible to predict whether an animal will be free of these maladies or not, which is why you must find a reputable breeder who is committed to breeding the healthiest animals possible. The Malamute is a fairly healthy dog, but he's at risk for some genetic diseases, including hip dysplasia. This is a particularly devastating condition for an active running dog like the Malamute. Make sure your breeder provides you with written documentation from the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals or the University of Pennsylvania, certifying that a puppy's parents are free of hip dysplasia. They can also suffer from inherited poline neuropathy, for which there is no screening test. This is a nervous system disorder that causes chronic lack of coordination and weakness in the dogs. The Alaskan Malamute Club of America participates in the Canine Health Information Center, a health database. Before any individual Malamute can be issued a CHIC number, breeders must submit hip evaluations from the OFA and eye test results from the Canine Eye Registry Foundation. The OFA certification of thyroid health is optional. Beagles are easy care dogs who don't need a lot of fancy grooming. A good going over with a hound mitt once or twice a week removes dead hairs and helps keep them from migrating to clothing and furniture. And here's the bad news: Beagles shed year-round. The good news is, unless your beagle rolls in something stinky, which honestly is a strong possibility, he shouldn't need a bath more than 3 or 4 times a year. Keep your beagle's droopy ears clean with a solution recommended by your veterinarian. Don't use cotton swabs inside the ear, as they can push gunk further down it, and wipe out the ear with a cotton ball, never going deeper than the first knuckle of your finger. Trim his nails regularly, usually every couple of weeks, as they should never be so long that you hear them clicking on the floor. The Alaskan Malamute has a thick, coarse stubble coat. It's not especially high maintenance, as you can brush it a couple of times a week to remove dead hair and distribute skin oils, but it sheds year-round and more heavily on a seasonal basis. A Malamute's owner's best friend after his dog is his vacuum cleaner. Twice a year, Malamutes blow their coats. Picture mountains of hair drifting all over the house and attaching itself to every surface. The rest of the year, the shedding is much less, so much so that you might be able to get away with vacuuming only twice a day instead of every 4 hours. If you can put up with that, the Malamute is a pretty easy care dog. Bathe him every few months or whenever he's dirty. He doesn't need any special trimming to maintain his distinctive look. The rest is basic care. Trim the nails as needed, usually once a month, and good dental hygiene is important, so brush the teeth frequently for good overall health and fresh breath. Check the ears weekly for dirt, redness, or a bad odor that can indicate an infection. If the ears look dirty, wipe them out with a cotton ball dampened with a gentle ear cleaner recommended by your veterinarian. It's best to introduce your dog to grooming at an early age so he will accept it gracefully. Alright guys, which one do you think you'll get? Tell me down in the comments.